Imagine it's 1939. You're walking with your lover in Berlin when, boom, a group of Nazi soldiers stops you. They pull down your pants and demand to check your genitals. And then you're taken away because your foreskin was removed when you were born. That's the Holocaust, the genocide of the Jewish people, one of the darkest stains in human history. But how could something like this happen in the heart of civilized Europe? How could an entire nation believe that wiping out millions of people was the right thing to do? Let's go back to Germany in 1933, when the nightmare began. On January 30th, 1933, Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. He promised to rebuild the nation after its defeat in World War I. But behind those promises was a storm called racism. According to Hitler, the Aryans were the master race, while Jews were parasites of society. They were blamed for everything: the unemployment, inflation, even Germany's defeat in the war. From propaganda to law, discrimination became legal. Jews were stripped of their citizenship, forbidden to marry Germans, banned from professions, and denied public education. An invisible wall was slowly built, isolating them from the rest of the world. In 1939, Hitler invaded Poland, marking the start of World War II. Millions of Jews were forced into ghettos, separated, impoverished neighborhoods filled with disease. Food was scarce. People died of hunger every day, those who resisted and were shot on sight. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing units, followed the German army, executing entire Jewish communities and villages. Step by step, destruction was being organized systematically. In January 1942, at a luxurious villa in Wannsee, senior Nazi officials gathered. On the table, there were no bombs or guns, just paper and pens. But there, they signed off on the final solution to the Jewish question. In short, to exterminate all Jews in Europe. Death camps were built: Auschwitz, Treblinka, Sobibor, Chelmno. Places where humans were reduced to numbers, then erased within hours. A killing machine operated with industrial precision. Every day, thousands were transported to these camps in cramped train cars. They brought luggage, believing they were being relocated for work. But what awaited them wasn't work. It was death, gas chambers, forced labor, inhumane experiments. When the war ended, the number stunned the world. 6 million Jews, 6 million lives erased simply because they were Jewish. Along with them, millions more. Roma people, the disabled, political prisoners, homosexuals, and anyone deemed unfit to live. In 1945, Allied forces entered the concentration camps. They couldn't believe their eyes. Mountains of clothes, shoes, glasses, and survivors who were nothing but skin and bone. The world was horrified. The crimes could no longer be denied. At the Nuremberg trials, many Nazi perpetrators were brought to justice. But no sentence, no punishment could ever restore the lives of the millions who were lost. What were the reasons behind Hitler's extermination of the Jews? Hitler's extermination of the Jewish people was primarily driven by his extreme racist ideology and fanatical antisemitism, both of which were central pillars of Nazi belief. The Nazis falsely believed that Germans belonged to a superior Aryan race, while Jews were an inferior parasitic race that posed a threat to the purity and survival of the German people. Hitler and the Nazi Party promoted a pseudoscientific theory of racial hierarchy, claiming that the Aryan race stood at the top and was engaged in an eternal struggle to dominate inferior races. The complete removal of Jews from German society was seen as necessary for the purity and strength of the German nation. After Germany's defeat in World War I and the ensuing economic and political instability, Hitler and other right-wing nationalists spread the stab-in-the-back myth, falsely blaming Jews and communists for Germany's loss. This provided a convenient and powerful scapegoat for the nation's problems. Hitler blamed Jews for everything he believed was wrong with the world, from capitalism to communism, portraying them as a single conspiratorial force bent on world domination. This propaganda effectively exploited centuries-old anti-Semitic prejudice that already existed throughout Europe. Hitler's expansionist policies aimed to conquer vast territories in Eastern Europe to provide living space for the superior German race. Achieving this goal involved removing or exterminating local populations, especially Jews, whom the Nazis viewed as racially inferior and as the masterminds behind Soviet communism. The Nazi Party's rise to power during economic depression and political chaos allowed Hitler to turn his racist antisemitism into official state policy. A lack of significant public resistance and widespread indifference to early persecution of a small minority enabled the regime to gradually escalate its policies, from discrimination to systematic mass murder. Ultimately, the extermination of the Jews was the result of a state-sponsored, systematic effort by the Nazi regime, what they called the final solution to the Jewish question, driven by Hitler's fanatical genocidal ideology. Did the Nazis intend to exterminate the Jews from the very beginning? The policies and actions against Jews can be divided into 3 stages. 1. Persecution and forced emigration of Jews from Germany and Austria, 1933 to 1939. 2. Concentration and repression in the German-occupied Eastern Territories, 1939 to 1941. 3. Systematic extermination from mid-1941 until the end of the war. Scholars have long debated the motivations and intentions behind these policies. Initially, in the 1940s and 1950s, historians who followed the intentionalist view argued that the extermination of the Jews stemmed from Hitler's personal hatred of them. They claimed that his consistent anti-Semitic statements, from his early political speeches in 1919 to his final testament in 1945, showed that he came to power with a clear goal to eliminate Jews from Germany. Over time, however, other historians propose structuralist or functionalist interpretations, emphasizing the broader German society's efforts to push Jews out of everyday life through increasingly harsh laws and cumulative radicalization. They also pointed to plans in the late 1930s to encourage or force Jews to emigrate, and more broadly, to the world's failure to provide safe refuge for the thousands who tried to flee. International efforts to resolve the refugee crisis were half-hearted and grossly inadequate. With the outbreak of war, the situation for German Jews worsened, while those in newly occupied Polish territories were often confined to ghettos. After the invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941, the operations of the Einsatzgruppen, the expansion of existing camps like Auschwitz, and the construction of killing centers coincided with the deportation of Jews from Germany to extermination sites. Although there is no surviving document in which Hitler explicitly orders the final solution to the Jewish question, making it impossible to pinpoint an exact date, most scholars agree that the summer of 1941 marked the transition to a more systematic program of mass murder.